All right, we are live with another Sure Oak AI Companion podcast. What is this, number 3 or 4, Roberto? I don't even remember.
It's probably this is the third one, I believe.
Third one? Okay. Well, we're
Yeah.
doing good. So we have some familiar faces, always. Roberto, always with us, SEO specialist, and you're actually now an AI. What would you call us? You're like an internal influencer in the company. So thanks for
Right.
being
Well,
on today. Yeah.
absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Cool. We're also joined by Suprit Patel. Suprit is, he's been on the podcast a couple times. Friend of Sure Oak, angel investor, tech founder, tech startup. You fly under the radar on some of these, but very successful. Really happy to have you on. How you doing today, Suprit?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
Absolutely. And a new face. What I love about this podcast is I get to bring my friends on and like the stuff that we talk about over coffee, we get to record. Weaver Ellard is the founder and owner of Dodeka Digital Marketing. He does all things paid media, builds awesome websites. He's just an all-around great guy. Runs it with his brother. They're building something pretty special. So check out Dodeka. Has also had experience with QGenda, a giant SaaS company here in Atlanta. Rule One Ventures was doing work with Red Century with cybersecurity. So he's very well rounded in the technology space. Weaver, thanks for being on. Hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Cool. So as always, we dive into the latest stories, mostly AI, 90% AI, but a lot of just general MarTech as well. Wanted to get your hot takes on Gemini's AI mode. So now it's actually built into the SERP. You can go AI mode only. Anyone got an immediate opinion on this? I'll pull it up on the screen so we can actually see some of the features associated with it. But I don't know. I was expecting a little bit more. I got to be honest. So
I like it. Like, I feel like it's kind of obvious they're moving this direction. But I do, and I think we'll get into this, but I do, as a marketer, have a lot of concerns about like the long-term impact on SEO, PPC, kind of all the other areas. But I think interface-wise, it's got some work, but I think it looks pretty good so far.
yeah. So like when I type in dentist near me, it doesn't give me a lot more out of the SERP. I mean, it does give me the search results and it gives some descriptions. But it's just a chat prompt. It's not like anything crazy. I thought the map would show up where they're located. The SERP is still more useful to me. But what I showed on the screen really quickly was that it got rid of like the Yelp reviews and all the ads. So some of that noise is out of there. So I like that from an organic perspective, but as an advertiser, I'm not super happy about it. Sometimes maybe those social media platforms aren't there. So I was wondering what you guys thought of just like the interface.
I mean, the interface itself is not anything to write home about, right? But I think it's step one. I mean, in the screen that you were just showing, it basically looks like a ChatGPT web app, right? It's something people are familiar with, they get it. So I think this is probably a step in the right direction. I mean, they kind of had to do this, right? Like when you look at all the numbers for how people are switching to AI instead of search, I feel like they had no choice but to start integrating these things in. And I can understand, especially you all who are so deep in the ad world, like, yeah, I can see it. It can be concerning, right? But I feel like for Google and to protect some like part of that business, they have to do it, and so they have to figure out ways that to integrate this kind of functionality into search.
That is a perfect segue. So let's go right there right now. So you talked about, Google's under fire everywhere, right? So Google is, for the first time last month, their market share dropped under 90% for searches. And now Apple is reevaluating its deal as the default browser search engine for Safari, a deal worth $20 billion a year to Apple. And that's going to fall off. So big deal, not big deal.
I think it's a big deal. I think
It's a big deal.
especially,
Go for it.
yeah. I mean, I think especially like the percentage of searches that are now happening in ChatGPT versus Google, like still definitely less overall like searches in ChatGPT, but I think it's only rising. And I think if a change like this was to happen, like one of the major browsers starts to use ChatGPT as the default, yeah, I think Google's in major trouble, especially if, like we just saw, their interface is right now no better than ChatGPT, or is basically just trying to catch up to look like ChatGPT.
yeah, I think they're in major trouble if that happens, or if they don't like make some major changes to their interface to make it different, which I feel like there's a lot they could do like UI wise to set it apart. But yeah, I think they're in trouble.
Do you guys generally like Gemini, as your go-to search model, or even just, AI model, not generally? Roberto, what do you use?
I normally use Gemini a lot for just informational queries, because it's already connected to Chrome, isn't it? And so it just kind of is a default, and that's kind of what I've stayed with, because when it comes to informational, I think it's all right. Like, pulling info from the web, it's okay. And it starts getting a little more questionable once you get more serious with it.
Yeah, it's integrated with, we're on Google Suite, so it's integrated with our tools. So it's nice for that capacity. But for writing, don't you use chat for guest posts?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting, right? Because I feel like we're creatures of habit. So whatever we got comfortable with first is probably a lot of times what people stick with. I think probably this group, put them aside. We're not normal users. Like, we're out there trying to test everything out. But I think for a lot of people, like, I have a MacBook and I have the ChatGPT app for my MacBook, and it's easier. I just pull it up and I use it. And I think most people just want to find something that is super easy to use. And once they get comfortable with it, they're going to stick with it. I think it's really hard to displace, one model from another once somebody gets used to it. And so, like, even for iPhone users, when you use Siri, it's ChatGPT, right? So it's like built into that ecosystem. So I think it's hard. And I also, to your earlier question, Nick, I feel like one of the articles that I was reading said that, like, Safari search has dropped for the first time last month or recently, right? That's a huge deal. Like, I could see a lot of people being very concerned about that and having to address that and having to come up with a solution on how to get around that, right? So I think these are very big problems, and I feel like they're also facing the issue of users being already getting used to one application and kind of sticking with that, and so they're trying to find ways to integrate maybe Gemini or whatever else into their workflow or their daily kind of user flow, so that they can try to steal some of that user base. But I think it's going to be pretty tough.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That well, one, it's a rev share deal, so we don't really know the details of it. For 20 billion, like a 1% drop off, that's huge. I mean, what's that? 200? That's like 20 million, or is it 200 million? 20 million, right? 1%. That's a lot of shekels. But to the other point, everyone's always betting on Google that the vertically integrated, they have the most servers, it's going to win this race. So obviously, if they put Gemini right within the SERP or use the AI mode, surely they'll catch up. But like, I saw this article by Search Engine Journal, but of the search engines, I mean, they don't have, I don't know, ChatGPT of search traffic. I still think it's something around 3%. But people, like 1 in 4 people, are actually using AI in conjunction with their search. But I mean, they're like way ahead of Perplexity and the other models in terms of their actual adoption for search. I mean, they're leading the charge there. I found that fascinating. Do any of you guys have a paid subscription? Because I also read a stat here: 1 in 10 Americans have a paid AI subscription.
Yeah,
I have
got
2.
a couple.
Yeah, I have 2.
I got 3, I think. Yeah,
you have 3. Which ones are you using?
Claude, GPT, and Gemini. Although I'm probably going to cancel my Gemini.
You got to cancel the Gemini. Interesting. What about you, Suprit?
Yeah, I mean, I have the paid GPT. That's it. I mean, I don't have the others. But again, I think it's because I got very comfortable with that model and I just kind of stuck with it. I haven't really seen a reason to change, even though, like we've talked about, it's not as if like the answers are always true. It's not as if the data is always correct. But I think that's kind of what everyday users are like. They want an answer. They want it to sound plausible. They want to move on with their lives. They want to use it, and that's about it.
Right. It's like my crazy spouse, right? Like, I know how they're going to react. So even when the model lies to me, like, I know to double check that particular point. I pay for Grok. It has like these personality sliders. It used to have, we'll talk about personality later. We can get into it now. but it has these sliders where you could actually like, hey, you're being way too informal here with me. Can you tone back? Can you get a little bit more straightforward? And now like I have it has my data, it has my past usage, and it knows me and I know it. And when I break up with my spouse and I go over to ChatGPT, like it doesn't have the usual prompts afterwards. I mean, that's why people love, we were going to talk about it. We'll just jump into it now. The researcher, gosh, I'm blanking on his name. He said he switched to, he's a big ML researcher, but he says he switched over to Claude because it's just more helpful. And you know, OpenAI has made ChatGPT 4.0. It's too much. Was it sycophancy? I mean, it's a great word,
Yeah,
sycophant.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just there's actually safety concerns around that. Like, how important is the personality now in our AI? I mean, like you said, it has my data. I know how it responds. That switching cost now, just based on user preference. Do we want an AI buddy or we want an AI resource or tool?
Yeah, I saw a really cool article that was talking about just how we view and how people view AI and all these tools, and that people were actually a little more productive if they didn't see it as a tool and they saw it as their coworker, or someone like they give feedback to, you can talk to, you can actually bounce ideas, answer his questions or her, its questions, and really determine, this study found that people were more productive when they viewed these platforms like that.
Interesting. What are you going to say, Suprit?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's factors, right? Like there's context, like what are you using it for in that moment? Like if I'm looking for a restaurant recommendation, I might want a more conversational tone, or I might want something versus, hey, I'm trying to do some research. I also
Trying to write code.
Yeah, right. I just, there's some things I just want to get right to, and there's some things that I'm okay with having a more of a, back and forth. But then I'm curious about the generational differences between users, right? So like, the 18 to 25s versus, let's say the 60 and over. I mean, what the different preferences are for people that have different levels of expertise with these things, and how they prefer to be communicated with, right? I bet that there's a wide discrepancy based on demographics, based on all sorts of kind of personal characteristics like that as well.
Weaver, why do you like Claude? I mean, do you like the personality there?
Yeah, I was just about to dive into it. I think the context piece is super important, and there's like obviously different kinds of tasks that I use both of them for that I want different kinds of responses on. And I feel Claude definitely, GPT can do this now, but I still think not quite as well. But Claude moved to like project type structure earlier, where you can like upload files, upload context, and have multiple chats in that same project. But I like in that chat, it always has that context of like, hey, I'm talking to you about contracts, so like always be concise, always keep the same language, this is legal, it's important. Or other times like, hey, this is website copy, what I think website copy should look like, so always keep in this structure. So when I'm having to bounce between like 5 or 6 main kind of things I go to it for, I feel like Claude did a much better job of like keeping that context and constantly referring back to it, versus if you get like a really long kind of message going with GPT, eventually it kind of seems to forget what you said like 20 chats ago. So that's why I like it. GPT is doing a much better job of that now, but I still feel like Claude has a lot better like context engine built into it.
That's cool. I remember talking to you about a year ago, but you were predominantly a Webflow, website designer. Has Claude, these tools made you expand a little bit more? Like you must be more nimble in WordPress now and some of the other tools and back-end coding and original websites.
Yeah, it's definitely enabled us to be a good bit more technical. Even like we mostly still use Webflow, but we can do, a little bit more like back-end custom integrations, stuff like that. And we mostly are pulling people out of WordPress and out of other systems like that. And when we're doing that, we're now much more able to not have to work with the dev or not have to work with someone else on their side to like get a lot of that export or get a lot of kind of the initial like coding or analysis done. So we're definitely, our non-technical people have obviously a lot more technical capability now because of tools like ChatGPT. So it's definitely allowed us to need less contractors or less like third-party help, for sure.
Great. No, I think having the dev, that's always helpful to have a tool where you don't have to pay whatever $250 an hour just to get some little backend thing or template made on WordPress. That's great. So back to the personality topic. Have you guys seen the memes taking over the internet of ChatGPT? ChatGPT 2023 is like Spock. Chat 2024 is some skater bro, and now we got Gordon Ramsay. Oh dear, gorgeous. It just wants to affirm everything that you're doing. Suprit, I want to ask you, because you always have hot takes about, do we trust the technology companies to protect our safety when we're too affirming on misaligned behaviors? If I'm going to chat for, psychological help or how to do things, but I might be misguided, but it can clearly see my bias and keeps pointing me down this direction. What are your thoughts on ethically?
Oh man, that's a tough
I'm
one.
put you on the spot.
Part of me is always feels like more and more right recently that it's too late. Like we're so deep into this world, right? Like your data, our digital footprints, everything. It's already out there. And I think that what I'm starting to feel from a consumer perspective is people seem to value efficiency and efficacy and the ability for an application to execute a task more than they worry about their data. I mean, I think that's what I feel, and that's what I'm seeing, and that's concerning as people like us who know the ramifications of having your data out there. Like, think about that 23andMe story from, I think a couple months ago or wherever, where your genetic data is out there, and I bet a good number of people did not go back and delete it or do what they needed to. So
forgot they had it.
Yeah. So I feel like from an ethical standpoint, it would be nice if we could trust these big companies to, treat our data with the kid gloves that we want them to, but it's not happening. And I would say more so that you're not going to get the functionality that users want and demand if you do go down that road. So unfortunately, I feel like it's out the window because we're demanding certain things from our applications now.
Yeah, I mean,
that's my hot take. That's my pessimistic hot take.
But hey, did you see the new Pope when he was talking about just the loss of faith, just in general, even within the Catholic Church? I think he called it was some type of atheism, but he pointed to wealth and technology as one of the driving factors why people are feeling less fulfilled in life right now. AI is playing into that. I mean, there are ramifications culturally for this AI advancing at the pace it is. Weaver, are you going to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just I think that another really scary aspect of like what we talked about earlier with Google, but with like AI answers becoming more prominent and regular searches going away, is I think a benefit of regular search is you search something and then you have to browse multiple resources. You have to get a couple of different perspectives and opinions. So like, especially with like a medical, like, people search all the time. Like, I have a headache. What does that mean? If I begin to trust ChatGPT, if I trust ChatGPT as like my single source of truth, and it's wrong, or it just like, doesn't tell me the nuance of like, hey, you probably have this X, Y, Z, whatever. Then all of a sudden, all of our kids, our parents, our grandparents, other people who like don't really know to maybe cite multiple sources are getting what they think are accurate answers about really important topics in life from one singular source. And even if we believe that Sam Altman or whoever like has all the best intentions, there's always going to be things that they miss or things that are not set up right. And I think it's a super scary concept that like everyone's starting to look to this as like the source of truth.
Weaver, I'm going to keep it on you. We have the story, the Mark Zuckerberg quote. You probably know where I'm going with this. He says, so if you're an advertiser and you want to be on Meta or Facebook, in the future, very soon, we'll just tell Meta, get me more customers. And he says, you connect your bank account. You don't need any creative. You don't need any targeting demographic. You don't need any measurement except to be able to read the results that we spit out. So you do a lot of paid media. What do you think about this quote where Meta is now going to do all your creative, all your ad copy, and just start? And you don't even need to like have data of like what your ICP is. It's just going to automatically target that for you with whatever input that you give it.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, and it's like definitely a rosy picture for people who are aren't good at ads. They're like, oh, I'll be just as good as everybody else by using the AI for it. But I do think like with everything is just going to kind of change the game of where the expertise is important. So even if everyone moves to like using Facebook to create all their creatives for them, and then it's like, how do you prompt that creative, or what kind of info are you giving them to get the creative that seems to be working? So I think it will definitely change the game a little bit of like which parts of the creative process and which parts of the kind of targeting process are more important, or we should spend more of our time focusing on. But I think I think there will still be a lot of nuance, and like if that is true, then everyone's ads will all look the exact same, and there will be like no separation, right? So then it'll go back to like, oh, I'm going to have the ads that weren't designed by AI so that they look different than everyone else's, so that I get better click through rate. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting, and I think people are moving that direction. But I think it'll be
this
really
isn't a new concept for either of our firms. Like, hey, I just want to drive more traffic, and they drive traffic that was just total garbage, right? And so Meta, Google, all of them, the default setting is to drive more traffic, not to actually drive more, conversions or actually qualified ICPs, right? And so I worry about brand safety. I think there's even a quote in the article by Verb where he talks about one of the executives, like, I'm not going to trust AI to protect my brand. It's going to try and get the most clicks. It's going to try to get the most, whatever that would be. Maybe it'll get smarter then, but like, I'm not going to be an early adopter on letting it run my creative. One of the other things I wanted to go into is continued troubles with Google. So they have, as I understand it, I'm not an expert on this, but they have 2 lawsuits going on antitrust to break up the company. The first is on the search side. They have monopoly. Maybe that's not a monopoly in a year from now, but on the search side, they want to break up, they want them to sell off Chrome. But on the other is on the ad side. So they did the $3.1 billion acquisition of, what was it? DoubleClick. Is that the one we were? Yeah. And so DoubleClick. All the non-Google ads work, the retargeting, the banners, the streaming ads, the smart TV ads, the guaranteed ads, those are all run through Google's platform now. And I guess the article is really vague about it, but 50 to 9% market share. They want them to break that up. Weaver, do you use a lot of these ads? Do you have, concerns about, where is this going?
Yeah, we definitely use the Google network a lot for a lot of our like display ads. Even like YouTube ads are a little different, but for display ads and retargeting and all sorts of other ads like that, we utilize it. I think, in my opinion, this doesn't affect the advertisers or like the people that are paying either, like the end users, that much either. I think it's more so just like whether Google gets more money or it can go to like the other advertising platforms out there. The big thing that I'm seeing is I do think the court has a pretty good case against Google, in the sense of like Google owns where these placements are, and they're the only ones that like really get to bid on them. But their alternative, or their kind of response to the court, was like, hey, we will allow our competitors to also try to bid on the same placements that we are. And so I think that's a pretty good alternative. I think the case will probably, or the courts will probably accept that alternative ultimately. But yeah, I don't foresee it having like a huge impact in the near term, or even when the case is closed, as far as like the cost of display advertising or which platforms people will use. I think people who use Google will still use Google, and it'll probably remain pretty similar. Maybe the cost will go up a little bit if there's competitors bidding in that space, but
yeah. Suprit, you have a lot of experience with this. I know you had a product that was what'd you call it, a search list acquisition, but you used to do really targeting ads, particularly on mobile. Like, do you always have to use Google in those cases?
Yeah, not necessarily, but I do think this opens up a broader question of other places for advertising, right? I think there's a growing market for that. So it doesn't just have to be through Google, right? We talked about this, I think, recently about, in ChatGPT or in these AI platforms, right now they don't have ads, but that doesn't mean they're always not going to have ads. So I feel like it opens up a broader conversation about where are ads going to start inserting themselves in the user experience. And I think there's more and more places for that now. And so if you combine kind of a couple of things we've talked about today, like, if people are searching less, and if they're using things like tools like ChatGPT or Grok or anything, right, more as they shift over there, does that also present an opportunity for new places and new avenues for ads? And so I'm curious how that'll impact Google, how it'll impact these other platforms, how they take that into consideration to not negatively impact the user experience. But also, let's be honest, if people are spending a lot more of their time there, then these platforms are going to look for ways to monetize that, right? So I almost feel like there's a transformational shift there of where all these ads can start being displayed, not outside of the Google sphere of influence.
I mean, the ethical way to do this is to at least say, I mean, like Google does, they say this is promoted. You can clearly tell on top of the SERP, there is the ads. But now if it's in part of a conversation, hey, by the way, or even a voice, hey, by the way, Suprit, I was paid to tell you about Sure Oak, this great SEO agency that's going to help you do this to market your company. I mean, that's awkward, right? What's the right way to do this? I don't know. I mean, anyone. I mean, I'm very curious how they're going to insert ads. I know it's coming. I just don't know what's going to be the elegant way to do this.
It's probably just like banners underneath, like banners. I think a lot of banners going to happen. Yeah.
Banners
that way it
sense.
Doesn't interfere with the information, and stays reliable in that sense. I don't know.
So when I'm talking to my phone, I'm talking to Grok, some banner pops up flashing, buy bread at next bakery.
I think that, I think that's a good potential way to do it. And I think banners and or just a section that's on the left they have the nav bar right now of the chats you have. They might have another one that pops up on the right that's kind of here's some relevant sponsored content based on what you just searched, or things that just pull up it's a little bit out of the interface, so it's not super cumbersome, but it's updated in real time based on what you're searching. I think that something like that will probably be it. I think that it'll be really interesting to see who does it first, because I think it's going to have a huge negative impact on whichever one of them does it first. People are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to use Claude anymore because they're always advertising, so I'm going to get GPT. So I think the rollout of it is what is going to fascinate me, of who does it when and how closely do they follow each other, or kind of if GPT does it first, does Claude just kind of watch for a while and see how it goes before they do it, So I think it'll be fascinating to see how it rolls out.
My money's on Zuckerberg doing it first.
That's a good guess.
That's a good guess. I mean, I just don't think Claude will ever go down that route. I mean, I just think the CEO's, high standard for safety. I just don't think he'll ever do that. I don't know. Won't be Hugging Face. Has anyone used Hugging Face yet? Not yet. All right. Well, that's what the Sharps are doing. I don't know. I think the other thing that's scary around this was Sam Altman's new company. I don't know if you've seen, Tools for Humanity. Let me show the screen real quick. So Tools for Humanity is his everything app. And he's in a race with Elon Musk. And I guess, I don't know if you guys have read his biography yet, but Elon, this was his original intent for PayPal, and he wanted to call it X back then. But the idea was that you would have one social platform where you would send and bank, and everything would happen here. I think we're seeing this already with Alibaba in China. But it's crypto, it's all of these things. But the idea, as I understand, is to protect human identity. So where humans can interact with humans, and maybe no robots allowed, or if AI's in there, it's always just to enhance the human experience. This one's I don't know. Do I want to live my life on one app? It's a lot of data.
I don't think so. Yeah, that's a ton of data. And the leading AI company being the one to build the tool that's supposed to separate humans from AI. I don't know. I do think I feel like, to your point, people have been trying to do this for a long time. I think we're getting more trusting because of tools like ChatGPT, but I don't think not anyone. I don't think the general population is trusting enough to move to one tool like that. I also don't think the courts will allow that. Ultimately, that's a super monopoly if that gets widely adopted. So I don't know how that's going to play out, but I think I don't see super wide adoption. I think that'll be one of those we look back and oh, that's Sam's kind of thing that he tried that failed. But I could really maybe be eating those words in 5 years. We'll see. But that's my take.
I don't know. I mean, Facebook. Everyone was on Facebook forever, and then what? Then they bought Instagram to bring that user base back. But we've seen precedents for people spending inordinate amount of time on these social networks, and if these social networks then become your place to bank and your place to I don't know, verify your identity so you can do trips and, you know, these automated tasks and these agents, and they're safe within the platform. I mean, I could see a world where that happens. I'd be disappointing. I think there's way too much influence with a platform like that.
I mean, I can see a lot of consolidation at the very least, right? It may not end in one, like opening up your iPhone and having one app, although that would be nice to not have to scroll through 100 apps.
Yeah, all
But
the garbage I have to switch to. Yeah.
yeah, but I think consolidation certainly makes sense. And I think from a consumer perspective, people, again, I think what they want is their lives to be easier, right? When it comes to a lot of these things, I think they don't like going from one app to another app to another app. And I think what you might see is maybe consolidation by vertical, right? Like, so I could see like healthcare being an environment or an ecosystem that gets consolidated, and maybe you move more to the concept of these apps as hubs, right? And saying like, all right, here's my health hub, and it connects my different, you know, my wearables and my doctor notes and my prescription, data and things like that. And at least it's in one place, so I don't have to manage it in 10 different places. I think we are seeing that in healthcare for sure. So I wonder if maybe that's like the step one, seeing how many people feel comfortable with that, adopt it, use it. But it wouldn't surprise me if that's just step one. You know, maybe that's the
that's good. So these niching down of these platforms would be very interesting. I also think there's a generational, like
yeah.
my daughter would not use Instagram, right? Like she's like, it used to be Facebook. Like we wouldn't use Facebook, or like there was a generation that wouldn't use Facebook. They were an Instagram generation. Now Snapchat seems to be what the middle schoolers and young people are doing, because like, I don't want to be associated with that platform. If I don't know if Tools for Humanity or X is too mainstream, or even politically ideology, if X is too far right, and then this is what the left uses. Yeah, I don't think the market wants that. I can see a place like China where everybody's like homogenous, but yeah, go ahead, Roberto.
Well, yeah, and but precisely, I was going to mention that. Like countries like China have a little bit more of a consolidated. These called super apps, you know, that they do consolidate. For example, they have WeChat, you know, and that takes care of all their messaging, all their kind of like their banking. They do a lot of their banking through WeChat too, a lot of their transactions. And so it's kind of like this super app. And I can see it, like you say, just happening just for convenience. But of course, it comes with its risks.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always surprised. We're on 3 continents, Roberto. I'm surprised at the adoption of WhatsApp with all our team. I was like, you know, here in the States, like, what? Like I've been forced to get on WhatsApp. That was never something that was even in my realm of possibility, you know, before I came here.
Absolutely. So I got a pretty good theory on that. And that's because in the US, you know, texting was free from the very beginning. And in countries like Mexico, texting was not free. So we needed apps like WhatsApp to be able to text to whomever, whenever, as much as we wanted to. And that's why it's so broadly adopted, at least here in Mexico.
Interesting. That's great. So, well, cool. So the other thing I wanted to ask was, did you guys see the Kayak AI? I don't know. We have a little extra time, so I just wanted to throw that back in there. But like that was, you know, back to these agents and like doing data for you. It's not so much that, you know, there was absolute security risks with Perplexity's, you know, automated agents. Once you download it, it's on your phone. Once the agent's automated to your bank account and all these things, well, the agent can do just about whatever it wants with your bank account at that point. And so really good hackers, you know, Weaver, you know, you and I both have worked, you know, within the cyber world. That's, I don't know how I feel about agents from a security perspective. Like, yeah, here's my bank account, start automating tasks for me. And then, by the way, a hacker now has an evil agent embedded in there to do all kinds of things nefariously, you know, like the Superman movie where we haven't had a movie reference yet, so I have to say this, but like we're scraping pennies, you know, across the internet, making millions a day, or the Office Space, you know, great, whatever, like the heist that they were doing. So anyway, I have real concerns about that. Weaver, Suprit, I don't know if you guys comment.
Yeah. No, I mean, I do too. I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, just like how long it takes people to like fully trust AI. But I think ultimately, like I'm trusting Chrome with my passwords and my bank info. Like it has that data in there, and if it got hacked in the same way, like that would all be exposed. So I
Nothing's
definitely
safe.
am not at the point with agents that I would feel safe like having an agent have access to any of that. Uh, but I don't think it's too long before that just becomes super commonplace, and I would kind of have to have some level of trust, just like I do with all other aspects of the internet, where where my data is sitting out there in these companies that I, if I thought about it, I don't have a lot of trust for them, but I just gave them my bank number, to purchase something from Amazon or whatever. So I think it's just a matter of time until agents have access to that for sure.
Well, as a paid media specialist, it's your dream. I mean, it's just a toll road. I'll just start collecting fees on actual transactions that are happening with the agent, and my firm's going to explode in revenue. I mean, but
Yeah, that would be a nice trade off for
it would
sure.
be a nice
But
trade-off. Yeah, but like that's what other people are thinking, and you don't like the incentive there. It's too good. It's too good for these companies to act morally on the high ground. So, I have a lot of friends now at public companies like Cox Media here in Atlanta. Their head of marketing is not allowed to use any AI, and I actually have a number of clients where we can't use any AI. Especially as a agency that serves them, we can't use any AI or have any of our data, anything touch what they're doing, because they're very concerned about the AI having access to their data. I think it's a super legitimate concern, but it's a barrier to some of these big companies actually having the advantage. So are we going to start seeing the analogy or the imagery is these anthills all over, where if you looked at, you have these hives, these AI hives at these big, large companies with their own AI now doing it, where their data is siloed. And I don't know how they're going to solve for this problem.
yeah, I think it's fascinating in the sense of like the long term ramifications of that. Like I already think being an agency owner, and like part of the reason I started the agency when I did is because of AI, and like realizing that we could be a boutique agency but have a lot of the similar impact to larger agencies by leveraging AI wisely. And I also feel like it's really hard for large agencies to like retroactively adapt AI because they're already bloated and have all these processes in place, and it's just going to
Totally.
take a lot to over, and even more so on the corporate scale. For them to like effectively leverage AI would take a while, even if they were embracing it. So for the many out there who are not embracing it because the data concerns, I think all of the kind of like mid-sized businesses that compete with them that do decide to leverage AI well and like incorporate it into their infrastructure will quickly like steal market share and quickly attack the big players. So it definitely feels like a really short-sighted move to block off, like to not adopt it as at the corporate level. I feel like the ones who are adopting it at the corporate level are just doing it with like local instances, where I think most of the time it's through Microsoft's Copilot, that they'll kind of do just their own like local servers where they can store all their AI information. So it's not accessible to any of the other models out there. But I think at least doing that feels kind of like mandatory to stay alive for the next decade. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we'll start seeing maybe these smaller companies move up. So I don't know. Suprit, do you have a thought on that or no?
I mean, I think it's interesting because part of me thinks it's ironic, right? Like, so some of these larger companies, like you mentioned, they don't want to use AI because of data and security issues, right? It's funny when they have security concerns and when they don't have security concerns. I'll say that.
Right.
But I
It's
wonder if,
arbitrary.
yeah, exactly. It depends on what side of the fence you're on. But I wonder if part of that is a move to, are they doing that because they want to develop their own AI models and their own technology and infrastructure? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm curious where that is. But the part that I find funny in that is that they're not allowing their data to be accessed by external AI models, but all of their employees are using AI to do their day-to-day job functions. Like, I mean, how many people at large companies don't use ChatGPT or Gemini or something to write emails for themselves, or automate sales follow-up tasks, or do these or create slide decks? I mean, the days of creating slide decks and pitch decks and presentations, like, that's quickly waning, right? So it's interesting how the individual user is still using AI and feeding it data, right? Even unintentionally, or not knowing that they're doing it, or not knowing what, not knowing that they're doing it. But then the companies have these broad, like, initiatives where they're saying no to AI for our customer data or our internal, financial data or what have you. But AI is still being leveraged. I mean, even in those ecosystems. So I feel like I agree completely with Weaver. I mean, I think that if anything, they're allowing small and medium-sized companies to catch up and scale and go really quickly and drive efficiencies. And they're going to be caught, I think, on the learning side of things when everybody else is starting to pass them. So I get it, right? I get the sales point of like, hey, we want to protect our data, but I also agree that that's short-sighted. And I think it's the funny part to me, the part that makes me laugh, is that the employees are still out there using it every day and feeding it data. So
yeah. Well, this guy, he only has a company computer and only has a company phone. So he's completely locked out from the whole AI game. And like, he showed me his phone, like, I can't get to it. I couldn't download it, ChatGPT if I tried. And so that's how locked down his world is. I don't know if it goes all the way to his home Wi-Fi, but
but I would, a lot of these applications make our lives more efficient. Like, we're able to do things quicker because
make you
of them.
superhuman.
Don't you want your employees to be more efficient? Don't you want that? So I think it's a short-sighted move for sure.
There was a quote by Mark Andreessen, I think it was 6 months ago, which is like an eternity in AI years, right? But he said companies overestimate the value of their data with AI because the models are trained on all available data, and that anything that you add to it, even a big company, like big public company, like, you're only adding a marginal amount of, I mean, like, I can see it for individual customer insights, things like that, but like, you'll never match what Llama is being trained on with Facebook, or XAI is being trained on X. I don't know. Do we overvalue our data in today's age? Suprit, you're a data guy.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's your data is a blip on the radar of all the data that's out
It's a
there,
tic
right?
tac in the ocean.
Yeah. And look, there's ways to be protective of the data that needs to be protected, and there's ways to like your customer data, right? Things like that. That doesn't necessarily need to be involved in a lot of this. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting way of putting it. Like, I think people tend to overvalue what they're sitting on, and um again, I just think they're missing out if they're not using AI even on internal data, right? I mean, AI, part of it is the ability to draw insights from your data that you just couldn't get before, right? And easier, quicker. And so it would be silly not to take advantage of trends like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Give me a correlation based on this data and compare it to what you already knew. Is it anything
conversational
different?
analytics, right? I mean, it opens the playing field. Like, now
I
more
like
people
that.
can be involved.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, Priya, I want to stay with you on the angel investment side. So, one thing that was creating a lot of investment was this layer on top of the models for doing creating music or creating slides, just like you were mentioning before. So, there were all these companies doing that. But I've started to notice the models just doing them. Like, I could, within ChatGPT 4.0, I could make a full on Instagram campaign with imagery and copy. I don't actually need one of these layered. Is that, I mean, are we going to stop seeing investment in the AI layer?
That's a good question. I mean, I think that's something that a lot of founders are having to struggle with, but I think what it does is probably highlight the importance of things like the user experience and what other pieces you're able to bring in, right? So if all you're doing is allowing somebody to ask a question and you're providing a result or an answer, then that's not that valuable, right? Because a lot of people do that. But if you're using those inputs and outputs to go drive a next task, like in healthcare, it could be booking an appointment, or making a recommendation or follow up, or helping you order prescriptions or things like that. That's still valuable and powerful and needed. And so I think that's where people are going, is not just having it be like, ask and answer, but ask, answer, and do something, right? And take it to that next step and take it to that next level. So yeah, I think there's still room for apps that take user experience into account, that fit into people's lives, make them easier, and then go execute things for them or on their behalf.
ChatGPT, I just understood that recently or not too long ago, now anytime you prompt something, it spits it out and then it actually has something in the end, like, hey, would you like me to transform this into a PDF? Hey, would you like me to summarize this and send an email, or, like as an email or something like that? And so it always gives you that extra thing, like, so I like that. Yeah.
I do like the extra hints at the end. Go ahead, Weaver.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like similar to what happened in SaaS, where there was like some big players early, and then like vertical specific or niche specific software like really took off, and still does. Like if you find the right niche, you can still even have like decent or not that great software and be super profitable, because there's just like the broader softwares don't really target that super well. And I think within AI, like Napkin AI, I don't know if you guys have heard of that. It's a good example. It's like a graphic builder for decks, and it's really good. And it's a lot better. Like if I tried to use ChatGPT to create graphics for my deck, then as someone with more of a design propensity, or like having designers in our team, we kind of hate it because it's like not editable right now. It's not in the right formats. It's not super easy to like tweak it the way that we want. But for your average person, it's like good, a lot better than what they would go build on their own. But we want something more customizable. So Napkin is like built with that in mind. It creates like a bunch of different vector graphics. It creates it super editable. You can edit it now. But I think that's a good example. There's a lot of other softwares like that coming out that are like a little bit more niche. So it's not just like an AI image generator. It's like a very specific kind of AI image generator. And I think those will continue to gain market share, like with specific kind of personas or roles in mind. It will be interesting to see like how they, after they get a little bit of market share, like how they continue to protect themselves or like create trenches, because ChatGPT could pretty quickly roll out a release that has vector graphics in it or has most of that functionality. So yeah, I think there will be a lot of niche AIs that will do really well, but I think it's like their pace of innovation has to stay really high. So I think it's like their infrastructure probably has to be built on like OpenAI or on something like it, so that they can keep up with some of the broader like advancements that happen.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because Microsoft would do this. It would just keep dumping features into the Office suite, and they had their own version of Slack, and they had that PowerPoint, and they and the ones that they gave away for free were just not there. They had their own project management, so they had their own CMS, they had their own consumer relationship manager, I mean CRM, I mean they had all these things, but you didn't like them as much, and they weren't as good as the niche down tools. Do you use other tools, Weaver, like that? Because these agency owners, we are technology aggregators. We have to do more than the models can do just for the regular business owner or the CMO themselves. They pay us to buy the expensive tools because we can distribute it a bunch of customers. Do you use a lot of other tools like that put the sizzle on the steak?
Yeah, for sure. And I think especially like within websites is a good example. Like we have a like website specific AI that we use that integrates really well with the tech stack that we like to use. And it's really slick, and it's way more useful for us and way more useful for our clients ultimately than us using like ChatGPT or something similar. So yeah, I'd say our tech stack is growing with AI, not shrinking. And I think because there's like things that complement some of the core AI pieces really well that we're finding and kind of plugging into. Yeah, so I do think there will continue to be consolidation for most companies, but I think those who are like tech-enabled businesses or tech-enabled services, I think there's a lot of cool new AIs that can and should be leveraged, like in addition to some of the base LLM models.
Good, that gives me hope, because I like Notion, I like Canva, I like Figma, I like these tools that are very specific to the specific user. I mean, I'm not a big Figma user, but I like it when I get a Figma file because it is slick, and when someone knows how to use it well versus someone who doesn't. And guaranteed, I mean, 90% of CMOs or even small business owners who have marketing teams don't have people that are experts on this. There's just too many things in marketing to be an expert on, and I'm assuming that goes for all verticals: HR, finance, anything. So cool, gentlemen. We did close to an hour. Any closing thoughts? Hey, I appreciate y'all. Thanks for doing this. I'll hit the stop.
Cool. Thank you so much.